Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you're going to hear truths that were never meant to be shared. For years, people have tuned in to the Real Housewives of New York City, captivated by the drama, the glamour, the unforgettable personalities. But what you saw on your screen was only a fraction of the story. Behind every scene, behind every headline, behind every feud, there are secrets that shaped not only the show, but the women who lived it. I'm here to tell you those secrets. I'm here to show you the reality behind reality television. The moments that were raw, the struggles that were hidden, the pressure that came with fame, and the resilience it demanded. This isn't about gossip. This isn't about scandal. This is about truth, growth, and strength. And I promise you, by the end of this speech, you won't see RHONY the same way again. So listen closely, because tonight we pull back the curtain, and for the very first time, you'll hear what really happened. When people watch reality television, especially something as iconic as the Real Housewives of New York City, it's easy to believe that what you're seeing is the whole story. It feels raw, it feels unfiltered, and it feels real. But the truth is, reality TV is anything but pure reality. What you see on your screen is carefully designed, meticulously edited, and often manipulated to create a version of events that producers know will keep you entertained and glued to your seat. Untold. It's important to understand that behind every explosive dinner party, every shocking confession, every dramatic meltdown, there's an entire team working tirelessly to decide which parts of a person's life deserve to be amplified and which ones should conveniently disappear. I've lived it. And what I can tell you is this: the cameras don't just capture your life, they shape it. When you wake up every day knowing there's a crew waiting to follow you, when you're aware that your private struggles could be turned into a storyline, you start living differently. You start asking yourself, will this moment be used against me? Will this conversation be twisted? Will this become tomorrow's headline? And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin performing. Not for yourself, not for your family, but for an audience. Now, don't misunderstand me. There are moments that are very real, tears that are genuine, fights that cut deeply, laughter that bursts out uncontrollably because no script could ever manufacture it. But those raw pieces are always filtered through a lens. If a conversation doesn't fit the storyline the producers want to build, it's trimmed. If a scene isn't dramatic enough, music and editing transform it into something bigger. What started as a small disagreement between friends can be turned into a season-long feud, because that's what drives ratings. Ratings, so. And that's the part the audience rarely sees. The pressure that comes with being both a person and a character at the same time. Imagine knowing that millions of people will judge you, not based on your full truth, but on carefully selected moments edited into a 40-minute episode. Imagine being painted as the villain when you know the situation was far more complicated, or being cast as the comedic relief when you were actually struggling inside. That's the double life of reality television. Being yourself while also being the version of yourself the world expects you to be. But what's fascinating is how addictive it becomes. The lights, the energy, the constant drama. It pulls you in. Even when you know things are being shaped and edited, you still lean into it. You still play along. Because part of you wants to tell your story, part of you wants the platform, and part of you convinces yourself that if you can control your narrative just a little, maybe you can rise above the chaos. And yet, at the end of the day, the truth always lingers in the background. The truth that what you're seeing on screen is not reality. It's a version of reality. And the real story, the full story, is so much deeper than whatever made it to television. That's what I'm here to share with you tonight. The story that never aired. The most fascinating part of being on a show like The Real Housewives of New York City isn't the glamour or even the spotlight. It's the relationships. Because while the world sees friendships forming and feuds exploding on screen, the truth is far more complicated. Behind the cameras, bonds are built in ways that are both authentic and strategic. You're not just choosing friends, you're navigating alliances, protecting yourself, and sometimes even questioning who you can really trust. Producers thrive on conflict. They know that tension makes for compelling television. So if there's the slightest spark of disagreement between cast members, it gets fanned into a flame. A playful comment can be reframed as an insult. A misunderstanding can be turned into a betrayal. And when you're in the middle of it, when the cameras are rolling and everyone's waiting for a reaction, it becomes very difficult to tell whether you're fighting for your truth or simply becoming a piece of a storyline. There were moments when friendships felt real, so real that they carried me through the toughest times. Nights when we laughed until our stomachs hurt, mornings when we leaned on each other, tears that no producer could have staged. But those same friendships could turn into rivalries overnight. That's it. Sometimes it was because of something said in confidence that suddenly appeared in a confessional. Sometimes it was because a storyline needed a villain, and one of us had to play the role. And other times it was simply because living under constant scrutiny magnifies every little flaw, every small disagreement, until it feels impossible to come back from. What the audience rarely sees is the emotional toll of those shifting dynamics. Imagine sitting across from someone you've shared your deepest struggles with, and suddenly realizing they've aligned with someone else because it benefits them more. Imagine confiding in a friend, only to see those words twisted into gossip for the sake of drama. It hurts, and it changes you. It teaches you not just who you can trust, but how fragile trust becomes when cameras and ratings are involved. Yet, I'll admit, some of the rivalries were real. Some of the hurt was genuine. And in those moments, the cameras didn't need to add anything. The pain, the anger, the betrayal, it was all there, raw and undeniable. But what the cameras couldn't capture was the private reconciliation, the conversations that happened off screen, the apologies that never made it to air. So the audience was left with only half the truth, never knowing how much healing or forgiveness took place when the spotlight was gone. That's the paradox of the friendships and feuds on RHONY. They were both real and manufactured, both authentic and amplified. And navigating them required strength, resilience, and an understanding that no matter how close someone might seem, everything can change with a single episode. Because in that world, loyalty is tested daily, and betrayal is always just one storyline away. Fame is often painted as the ultimate reward. The lights, the recognition, the invitations, the applause. It's so perfect from the outside. But what people don't see is the pressure that comes with it, the kind that seeps into every part of your life. When you are part of a show like The Real Housewives of New York City, the expectation isn't just to show up, it's to show up flawless. Every outfit is judged, every word is dissected, every mistake is magnified. And when millions of eyes are on you, that pressure can feel unbearable. There is this constant push to maintain an image, to live up to the lifestyle that viewers expect. People don't just want to see your home. They want to see the biggest, the best, the most enviable. They don't just want to see your celebrations. They want drama, tension, and a level of extravagance that feels larger than life. And so you find yourself stretching, performing, doing more and more to fit a mold that was never really yours to begin with. You start losing pieces of yourself in the process. At the same time, you're dealing with personal struggles that the world doesn't always see. You can be going through heartbreak, disappointment, or even moments of deep insecurity, yet you're expected to step into the spotlight and act like everything is under control. And if you slip, if you reveal that you're human, if you show cracks in the armor, those moments become headlines, replayed endlessly as if they define your entire being. It's a heavy weight, one that follows you long after the cameras stop rolling. But here's the truth. Those struggles are also what teach you the most. I've learned that strength doesn't come from perfection, it comes from surviving imperfection. It comes from facing criticism, enduring judgment, and still choosing to stand tall. The more the world tried to box me into an image, the more I realized the importance of breaking free from it. Fame can strip you down, but it can also force you to rebuild yourself with intention, to decide who you are away from the cameras, away from the noise, away from the noise. What people don't always understand is that resilience isn't glamorous. It's messy. It's the nights when you're questioning your worth, when you're trying to figure out if the public's version of you is stronger than the real one. It's finding the courage to keep moving forward even when your reputation, your choices, your very character are being debated by people who've never walked a day in your shoes. And yet, there's something powerful about coming through it all. You stop living for the applause. The applause. You stop chasing perfection. And you start embracing authenticity, knowing that no amount of fame is worth losing yourself. Because in the end, the real victory is not in being adored by millions. It's in being at peace with who you truly are. When I look back on everything, the chaos, the friendships, the betrayals, the pressure of fame, what stands out most isn't the drama, it's the lessons. I've learned that no matter how carefully you try to control your story, life has a way of humbling you. I've learned that strength isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about finding the courage to rise again when you've been knocked down in front of the world. And I've learned that reinvention is not weakness. It's one of the greatest forms of power. Stepping beyond the cameras meant asking myself the hardest questions. Who am I without the spotlight? Who am I when the headlines fade? And the answer was simple. I am someone who refuses to be defined by other people's narratives. Growth doesn't come from staying in the drama. It comes from choosing to rise above it, to create a life built on authenticity, purpose, and self-respect. Because at the end of the day, the real story isn't about secrets, scandals, or television. It's about resilience. It's about reclaiming your voice. And it's about proving to yourself and to the world that no matter what, you will always rise stronger.